Okay, so let's go ahead and get this out of the way right now. My name is Chase Murphy. This is the Blue Collar Buddha. I'm your host, creator, and the guy who's solely responsible for the content. Before we go any further, this one is definitely not for kids. If you are easily triggered or you find yourself uncomfortable with certain kinds of conversations, especially about sexuality, about inner conflicts, this one is not for you. So I'm telling you this right up front. So whether this is for entertainment purposes or not, this, I'm telling you right now, walk away from this one, okay? So give you a little brief pause here, give you some time to turn it off, and then we'll get into it. I have said many times that I do not script these. I don't even really have an outline. I may take some notes during the course of the day about things that are on my mind, but I don't script these. I don't outline them. I don't script them. This one is no different. As a matter of fact, this particular episode, you'll notice I don't have it numbered. This is just called the fiction or truth or fiction. And there's this part of me, I think it's the intellectual part, it's the brain part, it's the physical aspect of it, it's the thinking part. There's this part of me that wishes that I had done this one earlier. But the truth of the matter is, we can just legitimately say that it wasn't time, or maybe I wasn't ready. Any number of reasons. But here we are. I'm going to talk about some things that could conceivably I'm going to put this episode, I just did I think episode 2A. I'm going to do this one next. This is the next one I'm going to post. I'm appreciative of the fact that I am getting the kind of clarity that's coming to me in leaps and bounds. I wish I could explain that further, but that's the best I can do for right now. But this episode, as I said, if you are easily triggered about sexuality or the darker aspects of our existence, this one's not for you. I was laying in bed next to my beloved wife, and it occurred to me I had to be sober for this much time for this kind of clarity, and it was not comfortable. On the one hand, it was welcome, but it was not comfortable. And I started thinking to myself, we talk about PTSD, and we often when we talk about PTSD, we talk about it in terms of combat, in terms of war. We don't often, and we can even talk about PTSD with violence, even in the civilian world, in what we call the everyday world. If you are the victim of a rape or, some act of violence that may organically alter your perspective of life. We will talk about childhood abuse, and for lack of a better term, in glowing terms. In other words, if you've not experienced childhood trauma, as it were, it is still something that you kind of can't get your head around. And I'll say this, if you've never had a child die, socially, culturally, that is one of the worst things that people may go through. Now, on the one hand, we can talk about all death is somewhat uncomfortable, but we have a belief that children do not die before adults and their parents. It's not the case, but that's what we like to think. So when a child dies, whether it's through a car accident, SIDS, or any other means, it really shakes up a community. And as I was laying in bed, these were not the things I was thinking of. As a matter of fact, we were watching something on one of our streaming services, and wholly unrelated. And I thought, when, honestly, was I supposed to be normal? Neurodivergent. When was I ever supposed to be normal? And I've said this before, I don't know if I've had the worst childhood in the world. As a matter of fact, intellectually, I know that I haven't. I know that. But I also know that I did not grow up in an environment that was conducive to emotional well-being, that was conducive to a psychological perspective on the world that allowed me to see it as a positive, exciting, safe, comfortable place. Ooh, there's a darkness that exists, and maybe I'm the only one. I'll own it, but I don't think I am. I really don't. Sometimes things flash through my head, and I literally think, where the fuck did that come from? I have no earthly desire of any kind to harm another person, and yet this shit flashes through my head. And then I said, is it because I watch horror movies? Is it because I like things like certain shows where violence is perhaps, I don't want to say glorified. You know, the games that I play on my game consoles, are they lending themselves to a perspective that glorifies darkness, maybe? But then you look at the Bible, right? That's not a bedtime story for children in many ways. But we won't talk about it. We, as a culture, as a people, we will not talk about it. So for those of us who feel so far afield, so far outside of what people talk about as normal, what do? Now, we can talk about generations. I was born in 65. So I'm not quite a boomer for those of you. Oh, he's a boomer. No, not quite a boomer. We talk about people and their identities. We talk about gender dysphoria. We talk about pronouns. We talk about a lot of things. And to me, and for me, every fucking one of them is a way to try to identify self. But we are still looking to the outside to validate and to confirm for us who we believe ourselves to be. We feel that we need people to say our pronouns. We feel that we need people to acknowledge the color of our skin or our gender. We feel that we need people to confirm and validate our existence for us to feel good about ourselves. It doesn't work. Yes, I said it. And I know there's people say, well, you know, had I not done this and had I not done that, I wouldn't feel this. I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm not doing it. I'm not saying that anything that anyone has ever said was a lie. What I am saying is, for the vast majority of us, a dependency on having the world to say that we're okay, that shit doesn't work. For me now, at this stage of my life, or actually at any time in my life, for me to have said, I cannot feel good about myself unless I confront my abuser and have him apologize, means that I am forever, or would have been forever, trapped with a need for his validation and approval of me. But the baggage that I carried around, and this is what we won't talk about. You have a psychologist that will literally tell you, well, told me, that physiologically my body responded to what was being done to me, and it had nothing to do with the emotional component. Okay, but yet, how am I supposed to explain? I guess I didn't have the best psychologist, but anyway, how do you explain that you have someone who has performed sexual acts on your person that physically felt good? Now, the contradiction is every fiber in your being knows this ain't supposed to be happening. You don't know why you don't know. And I'm not talking about the fear of, if your parents find out, your father is going to literally castrate you. I'm not talking about that kind of fear. I'm talking about that inner voice that lets you know this isn't supposed to be happening. And at the same time, it's saying, but you'll be okay. How do we even have this awareness? How do we even know where to go? Now, I know that some of this is rhetorical. I already know the answers to these questions, but I'm putting it out here because I know that I'm not the only one who's ever thought that way. Okay? We talk about, let's go with Jeffrey Epstein. Let's say that his island was an island of complete and utter disrepute, and that was done there should never have happened to any child. But it happens all over the globe. We have airplanes that go to foreign countries to participate in shit. Well, that's a whole nother story, but you get the idea. So it's not going away. We are not going to be able to legislate morality because there's always going to be a percentage of the population that doesn't see anything wrong, morally reprehensible about what it is that they desire. So we're not even going to have that conversation. I'm talking about those who get swept up and become the targets or the recipients of those desires and of those behaviors, of which I was one. We do not often hear men talk about being sodomized. Whew. That shit. But you learn how to tamp it down, right? So you have the pain in that moment. And I really believe that was the second time, maybe the third time, but I know it's the second time that I can consciously recognize that I disassociated. That pain was so profound, but there was no place to go physically. So you go someplace in your mind. So when those pieces have fallen out of the puzzle box and you don't have someone there to kind of help guide you through putting the pieces back together, to putting that puzzle back together, oh, you put it together all right, but it probably is not looking like the cover. In other words, you put it together, and some of the pieces are maybe not supposed to go where they went, but you do because you have to, quote unquote, survive. You've got to make it from one day to the next day, but there's no one to talk to. Couldn't talk to my parents, and I had to throw away the underwear because of the blood. I knew without knowing, because we hadn't had a conversation about, so son, if you ever find yourself sexually abused by another man, this is what you do. We didn't have that conversation. But they had talked about homosexuals from Leviticus, and they had talked about them. Here comes the word. They called that, the F word, all right? And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a cigarette in the UK. I don't know if they still call them that, but that's what they used to be in the UK. So I'm not going to use the word specifically for this case because I don't think it's necessary. I think you get the idea. So all of the religion-based negativity was there. So the very thing that my parents said they're going to burn in hell, they being homosexuals. Well, what had happened to me? See, when you are a child, no one really talks to you about the difference between this is not a homosexual relationship. This is abuse. But you're in it and you don't have the intellectual understanding to appreciate the context. So although these were not two consenting adults, in fact, I wasn't an adult. I mean, I thought I was at 13, but I wasn't. So there's already an imbalance there. So we're not trying to intellectualize this right now. What we're talking about is what do you do with the emotional aspect of this that we don't talk about. It is not as if the experience happens and you go take a shower and now you're good to go. No, you learn how to act as if it never happened. But that energy, for lack of a better term, it doesn't disappear. We can suppress it with alcohol. We can suppress it with a bunch of other things, be it sports, be it relationships. We can do a lot of different things. But it's going to be there until such time as it isn't. Now, I don't know when it goes away. It has been, good Lord, 45 years since that took place, and it's still there. I'd listened to many, and I don't listen to them nearly as much as I used to, but as I was trying to heal, as I was trying to understand what to do with all of this, when the drinking went away, I'm listening to these speakers and these teachers and these gurus and the philosophers explain you do this and you do that, and they talked about quantum mechanics, and they talk about this hurts and this meditation and this yoga pose, and I tried so many of them because I wanted to feel like I was okay. I didn't know exactly what that looked like or what that was going to feel like, but that's what I was searching for. I wanted to feel good about what had happened to me. And part of it was I had to tell somebody about it. I don't know why I felt the need to tell somebody about it, but there was this driving thing. Because again, listen, you wanted to tell somebody and you wanted to tell it to them and then not have them balk, not have them draw back in disgust or what the fuck, right? So you really are looking for someone to say, it's okay. I get it. But then even when that happens, there's still that part of you that goes, yeah, no, I don't believe it. Because of your own self-concept. Here's where we're going with this. So your self-concept, that, folks, is central. That is the key. You can get, I wholeheartedly, because it's worked for me, you can get material things. You can get the job. You can even get, in some cases, the specific person. You can get those things because the principles upon which the law works, the principles work, which is why people talk about them. They talk about affirmations and all these different things because they do work. If you follow the recipe, as it were, you can get things, but it's going to be mostly hit or miss. And the reason it's hit or miss, which is why they keep making video after video after video after video after video, okay, is not only to try to convince you that, yeah, it works, because you're not seeing the results that you want, but even when you get the results, when you get the things that it was that you desired, you still have that variable of self-concept. And it doesn't apply to every person about that I'm about to say right now. You look at many of the individuals on social media, and I'm talking about the ones that have people say, oh my God, they are so beautiful. They are so wonderful. They have a perfect life. They have this. No, most of them don't. But we are somehow convinced that if we see the white teeth and they're smiling and they are standing up on top of some monument with their arms spread wide and they have a nice saying down there from Ralph Waldo Emerson that they must have their shit together. And maybe they do. I know for a fact that many of them don't. But let's bring it closer to home. I learned how to mimic. I watched people's behaviors. I watched other children with their parents. I watched parents interacting with their children. I learned how to make myself smaller, to try to be the smallest, to stay out of my father's line of sight. However, because of my self-concept, because of who I really believe myself to be, I couldn't do it. I was too mouthy. I just couldn't make myself small enough. And my father didn't like that. Or at least that's how it felt at the time. I don't know what his reasoning was. But I could never find a groove to consistently stay out of his crosshairs. So when I got kicked out at 17, it didn't surprise me. And the night before, when he had been looking for his pistol to try to shoot me because he felt that I had sabotaged his music career, stands to reason that, I'm pretty fucked up in the head. That's how I felt for many, many, many a year. Then come to find out, no, I am really not fucked up in the head. I don't give a fuck what they say in Psychology 101. I don't give a damn what Freud would say about the id, the superego, and the ego. I don't give a fuck. I actually was not fucked up. It is a product of an environment that does not teach us how to search first self and then the other shit. We have it backwards. We search for the stuff, the big house, the validation, the applause. And I'm not saying I'm not saying there's anything wrong with applause. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a nice, large mansion. No. But we have it backwards. We have somehow convinced ourselves, generation upon generation upon generation upon generation upon generation, that when you have all of the goodies, all of the toys, you are a better person. You have a happier life. That shit is not true. You don't believe me? If you are making a shit ton of money and you are able to buy exactly what you want to buy whenever you want to buy it, there is no psychological reason then for you to have to snort cocaine. Yeah, I said it. Fuck you, man. I like cocaine. Okay, cool. Why? For the same reason I liked Guinness Extra Stout or other alcoholic beverages. There was something about the buzz that made me feel better in the moment, but what was really happening is it made it easier for me to tolerate my own self with myself. And I can break that down a little bit more, but I'm not going to do this for this particular episode. I think you get the idea. Anytime that we consciously participate in the altering of our states of consciousness through means that can do some pretty serious damage to the body, well, yeah, that's what you're looking for. But we make it so easy. It's alcohol. Fuck, we got happy hour. We have advertising because they say, well, drink responsibly. Man, fuck off. Think about that for a second. If we are literally going to buy products to change our state of consciousness because we are not happy with the consciousness that we find ourselves inhabiting in that particular moment, because we don't know how to do it otherwise. And again, these are sweeping generalizations. Does everybody who drink alcohol have a drinking problem? No. That's not what I'm saying. I am not saying that you have a cocaine problem. I am not saying that you have a crack problem. I'm not saying you have a heroin problem. I'm not saying that you have any problem. What I'm saying is when you start spending time with yourself and asking yourself, why do I enjoy the buzzed state more than the non-buzzed state, then we have a conversation with self that is paramount, but we won't typically have it. We won't typically have it. So yeah, going to my meetings and, hi, my name is Chase and I am. And then listening to people talk about how shitty things are and it works if you work it. No, it doesn't. My opinion, because the wagon falling just keeps right on happening. And then we feel like there's something categorically wrong with us because, well, if everybody else can stay sober, why can't I? Well, you're assuming that everybody else is the fucking sober. And I know for Jesus, there are people who go to fucking meetings and then go do the very thing that they just got finished saying that they are happy that they're not doing anymore. Does it happen to everyone? No, but it happens to enough people where you start wondering, what the fuck? You're the person that you look to that's supposed to guide you falls off the wagon, and we say, well, he's only human then. Well, then fuck it. If he had that many years of not having to deal with this shit, and what fucking hope is there for me? Those are the things that I was thinking. Now I don't have that concern because I don't look to another human being for my resolutions or my resolve or my validation or my confirmation about self. It is an ongoing now-to-now, moment-to-moment journey that I am fully vested in and accountable for. But I didn't get here overnight, and that doesn't mean that I am not still subject to some of the darkness that apparently is still down there that I contend with when it appears, when it happens. So if you're having those kinds of moments, there's nothing wrong with you. Now, again, the professionals may say that I'm full of shit, that I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll accept that too. But for the vast majority of us, there's nothing wrong with this. We have just been sold a bill of goods that was bullshit. But we accepted it, or tried to accept it, and we tried to live accordingly. But there are parts of us that just knew that that's not really how it's supposed to be. And here's how I want to end this to validate my point. Let's talk about, I'm not gay. I'm not. But there are people who are. There are people who are gay. And despite what the Bible says, there's nothing wrong with being gay. Nothing. Literally. See, I didn't even plan on going down this road, but I'm going to. So the Bible says X, Y, Z. Okay. Yep, I can read that too. And I'm not even going to debate the historical accuracy. I'm not going to debate any of this stuff. I'm not going to debate whether there is a God, there isn't a God, whether Christ was. I'm not doing any of that. But here's what I will say. For those of you who find it so easy to condemn others because of who they are, you are typically the ones who know the least about yourselves. Yeah, I said it. Because for you to in any way, shape, or form look at another person and say there's something wrong with you because you don't see the world the way that I think you should see it, you have to ask yourself, how much do you really love yourself? Now, as offensive as that may be for some folks, it is what it is. It is what it is. Because that's not love in any way, shape, or form. You cannot say that you are being a loving person and then seek to denigrate. You can't say that you love everyone, but I can't love you wholly and completely because you're homosexual. But you don't see the hypocrisy in your own words because you have convinced yourself, as we all have, that what we think and feel is correct because of what we choose to put our energy on. I say all this because while you're searching for your identity, while you are on this journey to more fully appreciate who you are as an individual, you're going to feel like you're off center. You're going to feel like your inability or seeming inability to master the things that these gurus talk about, the steps. They got 7 steps that are going to set you free. There's nothing wrong with you. You keep hanging out with me, and we'll see if we can't have more of these kinds of conversations. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. There really isn't. And for those of you who are offended because I spoke the way I did about the contrast and the contradictions of our human experience versus the spiritual experience that supposedly exists within the Bible, I'm not trying to offend you. These are my opinions. These are my perspectives. Just as you're entitled to yours, I'm entitled to mine. Be well, y'all.